Hi everyone, very warm welcome to this live virtual session. My name is Jerry and I'm part of the People Matters team. And it's a delight for me to welcome you all for this discussion here today. So, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time to join us for this session. And this is a conversation today we've curated, especially in partnership with upGrad Placements. And today's discussion is on the theme Finding Future Ready Talent, how organizations can elevate their hiring strategy. So, whilst we were brainstorming this topic some weeks ago, the business context was very different and it's changed tremendously in the last 3 to 4 weeks. But the emphasis on finding a future ready talent is still very relevant and very important for businesses, right? We're seeing different tailwinds of economic trends shaping business outlook, but the questions that are critical for business are still very similar, whether you're thinking about what creates talent longevity, what kind of message you should be sharing for prospective candidates, what are some things that you should be looking at while making hiring decisions. So we have a wonderful panel of experts with us here today to think about some of these issues along with us. But before I introduce them, quick housekeeping. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions to share, please feel free to share it on the chat section, and we will take it at the end of this conversation. All right. So with that, moving on to our speakers, I'm pleased to introduce Mayank Kapoor, who is the head of human resources at FreeCharge. Mayank comes with over 20 years of rich experience across HR and hospitality, IT, ITES, telecommunications, e-commerce, and fintech industries. At FreeCharge, his focus is towards attracting young and bright talent and building future leaders by creating world-class HR and people practices that is in line with the company's vision. And Mayank has worked with organizations like Snapdeal, SL, NIIT, Genpact, IBM in the past. It's great to have you with us, Mayank. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Jerry. Looking forward to a very interesting chat today.
Great. We also have with us Divya Amarnath, who is the Director for HR at Flipkart. Divya is currently working as the Director at CEO's Office and Mergers and Acquisitions at Flipkart. She has worked across diverse roles in HR and sales leadership. And previously, she has worked with HUL and Exceed. And she's been a part of the transformation journey across different diverse industries at different stages. She's also a recognized young rising HR leader from Are You on the List to Economic Times' Young Leader Award. On a personal front, she's also a mother of twins, and she hopes that this will also uh, help her grow into an empathetic leader. Thank you so much, Divya, for taking time.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm really excited for this most relevant conversation of today. Looking forward to.
Great, fantastic. We also have with us Hussain Tenwala, who's the co-founder for upGrad Recruit. Hussain is the co-founder, and upGrad Recruit is a new age staffing and recruitment company that helps organizations build their human capital. And with an experience spanning over 2 decades in recruitment consulting, he delivers thought-provoking insights into the future of this industry and is really keen on addressing some of the challenges ahead. And as a leader, he plays a vital role along with upGrad in nurturing an ecosystem that aids in the curation of the careers of millions of upGrad's learners, and he helps them make them the right choices. Great to have you with us, Hussein. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. I think looking forward to a great conversation with all my fellow panel members and welcome everyone.
Fantastic. We also have with us Kunal Rohila, who is the Assistant Vice President, Human Resources at EXL. Kunal comes with about 16 years of rich experience in talent acquisition, including recruitment strategy, the life cycle, and campus recruitment. And he has experience in employer branding, manpower planning, sourcing strategies, and client and vendor management. He's previously worked with ENY, HCL, Ericsson, Bank of America, and Genpact. And it's great to have you with us here today, Kunal. Thank you for bringing all that experience as well.
Thank you, Jerry, and I'm looking forward for this session. Very excited to be part of this session as well. Thank you.
Great. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the questions. And I think our first set of questions really is on sort of demystifying this context that we are in right now, right? Um, like I said, the work context has changed tremendously over the last few weeks. There's increased focus on inflation and its impact on economies at large. It's also shaping how companies think about their own future business path and outlook. And we're seeing companies do a variety of things. They're scaling back their recruitment efforts, they're focused increasingly on cost, and they're really rethinking their hiring strategies at this time. So let me start with Mayank and Hussain to demystify this with us. What are some of the top hiring and skilling priorities right now, Mayank?
Yeah. So at FreeCharge, considering we are a fintech, and even though we are backed by the third largest private bank in the country, we are very prudent on cost. And so we basically believe in balancing build versus buy in terms of talent. So, and it obviously depends on business priorities, depends on cost, like I said. Obviously, you kind of make an AOP or a manpower plan for the year, but then you keep revisiting it. So what we do, let me first talk about hiring. So there are a few things which we keep in mind. We have always believed in being very prudent in our hiring. So what that means is we don't unnecessarily overhire, which we've seen a lot of companies in the past do and then suffer cost implications, and then they reduce stuff. So we don't believe in any sort of hire and fire strategy or culture. Our positions are very carefully thought of, and we keep revisiting the org structure to see whether it's effective or not, and how we need to redesign it if required. That's point number one. Second, in my view, campus hiring and referrals are the way to go in today's time, because these are the two most cost effective channels in terms of hiring, right? So, in terms of campus, what has worked well and will work well in the future, I'm confident, is building long term relationships with select campuses. And by starting to offer long-term internship opportunities. So we started by giving a bunch of graduate engineers internship opportunities for 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, and now we are converting them into full-time software developers, or we call them GETs, graduate engineer trainees. Now this helps a lot because there is a lot of stickiness, because in the internship they've understood the culture, they've understood our technology stack, and when they get converted to a full-time resource or become a GET, they're basically they're ready to run from day one, right? The second part to this is again referrals, very very high potential, cost effective channel. So we had a very vanilla referral policy about 2 years back. We revamped that and we made it very interesting. So we put some gamification in it, and we use concepts of multi-level marketing. So there are two levels of referral payouts, and there is instant gratification. So you get paid immediately as soon as someone joins, and then if that person refers someone else, you again get paid. So it's like a two-layered kind of a thing. And what we've observed is in the last 1.5 years, if I talk about our source mix, referral contributes to almost 38% of my source mix, which is very very encouraging, right? Next, I think internal job movements also is a great way to tap onto talent. Considering we are part of a large bank, um, it's easy also and difficult also to kind of, it's like an ocean, to get the right person for the right job in free charge. But just to give you an example, our current managing director and CEO, our chief business officer, our head of business development, all of these senior leaders have come from Axis Bank. So there is an internal sort of movement and fungibility which we keep tapping and looking at, rather than just going out and buying talent. Lastly, I think the way to go for an effective talent strategy is to open up roles for gig employees. So there's a program we run called Gig Opportunities. It's got a two-pronged sort of approach. One, we look at people who can come on roles, but they want to work from an entirely different location. So it's called Gig A. A stands for anywhere. So if I need a React Native specialist and I'm getting one at an effective sort of comp range based out of Hyderabad, even though I don't have an office in Hyderabad, I'm happy to get that person on board as a gig employee. And second, we also tap into freelancers, for short-term projects. So that's called Gig F. So these are some, I think, areas from a hiring perspective. Plus, another thing which I was reading about is a lot of companies are looking at hiring polymaths. Polymath is a term which basically means someone who has a diverse range of experience across different domains. So these guys obviously then can fit into future-ready roles whenever required. So that's all about hiring, in my view. From a upskilling perspective, upskilling has to be a big focus area, because if you're not able to upskill and progress your talent and you're not able to retain them, then not only is the cost implication high, the productivity, the impact on the top line, bottom line, it's the whole 9 yards, right? So few things we are looking at doing or are currently doing is, one, obviously I'm a big believer of something called a top talent program. Most good successful companies run this, where you identify your top critical talent, top 5-10% critical talent, and you do something curated, something special, something customized for them in terms of learning offerings. One is that. Second, we've experimented by mixing and matching high performing talent by giving them wider roles. To give you an example, our head of customer service and operations has also now been given a product portfolio. So he's handling customer service ops, which is like a back end, front end, customer facing engine, or a team of people, plus product. So entire product journey, and how that's going to pan out in terms of P&L. In my team, just closer home, my admin and facility head is also looking at the HR business partnering portfolio. So I'm saying these sort of experiments basis the criticality of the talent and the potential of the talent, we should keep trying, because that will help you, one, build careers for these people, and plus it also benefits the organization. Incidentally, we tied up with upGrad last year to do a customized training program for our GETs. This was, I think, a 3-month program where we were addressing tech skill gaps to make sure that they are future ready. So that we definitely want to continue doing this year as well. Next, I think people management and leadership is always a hot topic, and you cannot lose focus on that. It's very important to make sure that you have learning journeys for first-time managers, mid managers, and senior leaders. So that, in conjunction with our parent company, we keep rolling out different interventions using top B schools internationally and Indian B schools. And lastly, we've just taken up an interesting project called Skill Ladder. I'm not sure if you've come across this term. Basically, we're piloting this in technology, where we are saying let's define competencies for each role and each level, vertically and horizontally, right? So I can basically look at a skill gap vertically if I want to move up the ladder, and then upskill myself today to be able to get to that next level vertically. Or I want to diverge into a different skill or a job laterally. So let me look at that gap and see how I can upskill, reskill myself, right? So this ensures either vertical growth or spiral growth for employees, which I feel is the way to go. So I hope that answers your question, Jerry.
Absolutely, it does. I think it's a very comprehensive answer, and you've I think really taken the audience through this multiplicity of efforts that you're doing when it comes to hiring. You spoke right from your emphasis on campus hiring to the approach that you have there, to your referral policies, and what works for you really there, and also the gig model, right? And the two approaches that you have from there as well, freelancers as well as gig employees working out of different locations. It was really fascinating to hear, new things like looking at polymaths and looking at this skill ladder. I think all of this is really pointing to this emphasis on experimentation that you spoke about. The different kind of things that you're doing to sort of retain talent. So that's very fascinating, I think, to hear. So Hussain, what are your thoughts on how this ecosystem is evolving?
Um, I think every industry is subject to its workforce facing disruption, from different forces. And that's kind of forcing organizations to adapt different strategies when it comes to their talent strategy. I think technology has been a major disruption this decade, and even as the workforce across industries in India is grappling with the shift, there are enormous amount of pressures over the business. So the first, we were hit by a pandemic, and now since we're out of pandemic, now it's more of looking at the inflation that's happening in the market, the investor sentiment, which is kind of driving the markets a little crazier in the last few weeks that we've seen, and the pressure is all over on business performance outcomes and eventually the bottom line, because bottom line is the the pulse of the entire the entire fraternity or the entire industry or the sector or the organization. And I think while the focus is completely on the bottom line when it comes to profitability of an organization, I think the talent strategy has to be done amicably in a way that it basically helps the organization meet its end. Now, how can that happen? I think uh, is about preparing ourselves from a future skills perspective. I think the question that we need to ask today is, as an individual, if I'm actually employed, what am I doing right now? Will it help me 5 years down the line? Will those skills help me uh, secure a better opportunity or grow in my career? That's a question I need to ask myself as an individual and as an organization. I think, are we ready enough from the challenges or the disruptions that is going to come from future skills? And how do I navigate my talent strategy to get my employees ready for future? So I think that plays a very important role when we talk about the necessity or the importance of skills today. And when we focus on skills, I mean, it's a question that everyone needs to answer is, every time when I'm looking at hiring someone, is it gonna be only skills or is gonna be an experience? And where I need skills and experience is something that I can live with, I will focus on hiring someone who's been reskilled or upskilled rather than hiring from someone from the market. Usually, we've seen in the last couple of years the kind of challenges each organizations are facing when it comes to hiring. I mean, the cost of resources have gone up, the CTCs have kind of going up, especially if we talk about tech, people having multiple offers, accepting offers, not joining organizations. I mean, the amount of time we spend in hiring and rehiring has tremendously gone up. So, first we had pressures as an organization, we had pressures on backfilling. Now we have pressures on rehiring. Means every offered candidate has to be rehired again because we have to reoffer someone. Given the market scenario, he has 100% hike, he has 150% hike. And that kind of adds a lot of challenges, a lot of resource costs to the organization. So it can be quantifiable, it can be unquantifiable as well. And it's definitely not easy for an organization to keep an empty seat, because an empty seat does matter, right? It definitely impacts the business, and we actually miss the boat, especially when you're in a project organization, uh, and you have to service a set of customers. An empty seat does matter, because at the end of the day, you're not able to make the most out of that opportunity, or it could be a business opportunity, it could be a new launch of a division, it could be a new project, it could be anything else. And given that, I think it's important that organizations should start looking at, as Mayank said, and I resonate with his thoughts, that give opportunities to people who come with future ready skills, who are upskilled, who have invested them in themselves, and are open for new challenges. So usually the gap in any organization when it comes to skills is between 3 to 5 years. Freshers, we are able to mitigate the challenge on freshers by putting them through various forms of training, and we can actually mold them, customize them based on the organization readiness. But it becomes a challenge when we talk about the next layer, which is basically the junior mid-level segment, which is 3 to 5 years, is where we need a blend of experience, exposure of working to corporate with the necessity skills. And that's where the future ready talent plays a very important role, and they become very handy in terms of for any organization. And at the end, what what does it mean to an organization? We're not compromising on the quality of the talent, because compromising on the quality of talent means that the productivity levels are not optimal, and employee scalability is a question. And at the same time, we can companies can offer multiple percentage of increments to attract talent, but at the end of the day, it's the retention that matters, not the attraction of talent. Once a person comes in, how long the person stays, what is the ROI I have on that particular seat does matter a lot. So these are my thoughts. So I feel that yes, there is a need for the industry to look at a different way of hiring in the current VUCA world. Over to you,
Absolutely.
Jerry.
Absolutely. I think that's really well explained. I think in terms of all the emerging challenges. Divya, what are you doing on some of these areas? I'm sure you're facing similar challenge areas as well. But we'll be keen to also understand what you're doing to address some of these areas.
Yeah, so I would kind of just break this into two parts, right? I think most of our panelists have also spoken about it. So I think the war for talent is real, right? So I'll break it into two, which is one is the talent acquisition. The second bit is the internal pipeline, building internal pipeline. Because when I'm looking at talent, future ready talent pipeline, it's these two become the pivots to it. So from an acquisition standpoint, we did some internal data analysis and we saw that average number of candidates holding competing offers, it has gone up by almost 50% as compared to what it was pre-pandemic levels. So which means that earlier, if I was hiring 10 people, out of 10, if say two people had, competing offers, now that number went up by 50%. So that's the kind of a view, right? Just to give you a sense. In tech, it's even more. It has gone up to up to 70 to 75% is a number that comes in tech. So that shows that from a bargaining power standpoint, as an organization, that used to be held true earlier. I think that is not the case anymore. It's like people are coming, they can throw offers at us, and they have better companies at any point of time. I think there are better companies who have even kind of given without naming them, right? I mean, they have given propositions like, you'll get a BMW, your referrer will get this, you'll get that. And when we are talking about the organizations which are of our scale and size, it's really not sustainable. And also, I think we've also seen that some of these practices have not been sustainable. It's just a fad. It comes into the market, it stays for 2 or 3 months, and then it goes off. But again, being a part of an organization of the scale and size, we cannot really resort to such small term tactics, because we have to ensure that there is parity in the proposition that we give to our employees as well, so we don't disincentivize loyalty from that standpoint. So that's been a real challenge for us to go through the tide of the fads that existed for some time in this area, right? Uh, Now, on the space of building internal talent specifically, what we saw, in fact, I think the realization, while we always knew that it's important, but I think the realization hit hard during this time that it's a great way for us to enable win win for organizations and people by looking at investing strongly in if elevating our own development and skill building in house. Like we just had but we were discussing this, right, in terms of how do we uh, upskill folks, how do we reskill folks, how do I really tap into that talent pool which is existing with me rather than trying to go hire outside for every time. Because it's important for us to look at different channels while I'm looking at the talent strategy per se. So, with constant landscape transformation that we're talking about, even in the business side, it becomes even more important for us to reinvent oneself. And for that, it's important as an organization that we enable those opportunities for employees, for them to develop themselves better, for them to reskill themselves better, and give them an opportunity. So, in fact, at Flipkart, we've taken a stance that we will democratize the entire career development. So every individual can choose what kind of experiences he or she would want to tap into, and we are enabling it through a platform. They can choose what roles they want to do, what projects they want to do, without boundaries of say functions. And really kind of looking at, so for example, we had launched something called as a product studio. There are people who are not into product, but there are folks who typically, in a typical route, they would go to an MBA and they would come back and then join as a product manager. We said, why can't, as an organization, we enable those experiences for them, just as an example. So we looked at some of those opportunities to create channels in house for people to develop. So that was one solve that we looked at. From a hiring standpoint, on how do we look at these challenges, as I said, we did not really resort to the fads that came into picture. What we said was, as Flipkart, we'll be very genuine about the employee value proposition that we have in place, and we are working towards bringing it alive for the people who are working with us currently, because I think they ultimately become our advocates in the external market as well. And then we ensure that our messaging is very clear to external candidates as well on these lines, on what we stand for, what is it that we can do, what is it that we can't do, etc. And then that helped us actually, while it was, I would say it wasn't as easy was as what it was before, but I would still say we are at least sure of the candidates who are coming and joining us. We know that these guys are going to be long term. We spoke about ROI, right? I think Hussain mentioned that on having an ROI of the talent, we are much more sure, we are okay with kind of spending some more time, but actually getting people in house who we know will be a match for Flipkart, and who will really kind of work in a long term, and will be excited to be a part of this ecosystem. So those are certain things that we have been trying to do differently as we talk about these challenges per se. And these are some of the real challenges we are navigating as we speak as well.
Absolutely, that's it's very fascinating to hear. I think you've also sort of adapted a very similar line of thought that Mayank spoke about earlier, which is giving people, access to skills and opportunities that they would want to do. So you're in effect like trying to personalize for that individual and help them grow in their career. That's really great to hear. Kunal, how are you thinking about this aspect of fan catching, and how are you sort of navigating this, with new age technologies and your focus more on data analytics as well? How is the skill sets for you, and what are some challenge areas you're addressing right now?
So Jerry, I think from a ITES space, I think yes, the offer drop and people not joining us is the biggest concern, because what we have seen is that people coming up with uh, multiple offers. And when I say multiple offers, it's like at this point in time, if the market is not a job seeker market anymore, it's a passive seeker market, right? People who already have opportunities in hand, they're now trying to navigate through opportunities based upon compensations, based upon brand names, and they're evaluating in multiple aspects rather than how they used to look job opportunity, where the elevation of the organizations would really talk about, right? I mean, where my profile will suit better, this kind of work culture that I'll get. I mean, people are not evaluating that. They're the sentiments have actually changed, and the way ITITS is struggling, they are more focused in terms of how they can nurture their in-house talent, as well as they are now, and especially our organization is now shifting our, because I mean, if you look at from our overall population, somewhere close to about 30%, 35% is always a campus intake that try to balance our attritions, as well as there are the areas that you can actually focus in terms of developing new skills. And then with time you want to invest and get them on board. But now we are also trying to focus in terms of creating parallel views in terms of how we can look at opportunities train to hire, wherein we invest in certain training programs, create a capsule programs, partner with a lot of external organization, and then onboard such people which are more become, actually I would say, profile ready, right? Especially in the case of analytics and data science, AIM, because here if you look at the current demand is 2x, and the availability of the resources is even less than that. uh, Competes, of course, every organization at this current moment are trying to retain or maybe multiply their resources based upon that's there as a challenge. But in order to enhance that particular skill set, I think we are now investing in campus plus plus kind of things. Of course, there is always a campus inflow that keeps on happening, in order to mitigate at least the bottom of the pyramid, to secure that, because they are the ones which are the future of your upskilling managers, upskilling senior associates, where you are currently at this point in time losing a lot of people because of how industries are actually actually behaving at this moment. Now, If I talk about what we're doing from a campus plus plus standpoint, of course, like I said, we're looking for building models like train and hire. We are also investing with the upskilling organization. Of course, upGrad is one of them. There are other institutes as well who are there. We're partnering in terms of looking at that talent pipeline, and then of course once we bring certain people with, let's say, 70% of the acumen what we are looking at, and 30% we can invest in house. That's how we are also building talent. The best part is to look at this kind of talent. It's like it's available throughout the year. You don't have to wait for a certain time frame from a campus standpoint. You are also having less investment time in terms of having these people, get submerged, in a current talent pipeline. All you need to do is just a little bit of hand holding, maybe a 3 weeks of program in terms of investing in these folks. And then wherever you're having your most of the freshers, you, of course, the talent pipeline is mixed. It's not just freshers. You're having people with certain experience as well who are creating now their profile from a T shape to an M shape, wherein they're having deep expertise and broader competencies as well. So they're not just focused on that. So with that kind of thing, I think it is helping us in invest in the areas that we are losing people, and that's the way we are actually building a future talent for us, which also has a sustainability, because here people who would have actually changed their profile, or maybe not just change, I would say they have invested in upskilling themselves. They have a larger probability to stick, to the organization, because that's where they're actually getting the opportunity to, whatever that they have learned from this upskilling, they have an opportunity to actually, implicate that. So that's how we are changing our look and feel in terms of how we can build in more talent, because at this point in time, especially in the ITI space, it's a pure talent war, right? Not just with the competes, but with different candidates as well, I would say.
Absolutely. I think all of you have spoken about a number of different models that you're exploring, right, to retain and engage your current talent as well. So, Hussein, I'm coming to you with this question on the longevity of talent, right? I think it's something that Divya referred to a little earlier also, and when talking about helping people democratize their career. And how are you thinking about this challenge area? And what do you think HR leaders should do differently? You spoke a lot about the view on the future, right? The future skills, having a outlook for 5 years, etc. Is that the way to go when thinking about this challenge area?
Sure. Thanks, Jerry. I think even Kunal spoke about in the end, saying that the longevity plays a very important role when we speak about the upskill talent. I mean, I'm just sharing an example. I was talking to a friend of mine who's the founder of a gamification company. So they design game mechanics to nudge people, and this is something. So you nudge people on different areas, basically creating more liveliness at work, improving your engagement score with employees, and overall giving one of the best employee experiences. And they solve multiple issues. So he had one company which had reached out to him to solve a problem where there is an adoption issue for a learning platform, where the adoption ratio is very low, and how can we motivate employees to adopt that particular LMS platform or the learning experience platform that they'd implemented. On the other hand, he had another issue to solve where there's an organization which needs to motivate people to come and update their resumes. The reason why they need to update their resumes is because they've been in the organization for 5 years, 6 years, but they've gone outside and they've done various programs, but they have not come back and updated their own internal profiles within the organization. So whenever there's an opportunity and a resource management team wants to look for internal profiles, they miss out on the board because the employees have not kept their details updated in terms of certification and things like that. So talking about, I mean, that's just an example I wanted to share. But in the context, if you look at the DNA of people who have uh, taken up a program or a course outside their organization, one is, there are certain DNAs which I really like and appreciate about them. One is their willingness to learn is the biggest commitment, which is easier for us to identify when a person is pursuing a program or a course outside or taken up a self-learning program. So one is the willingness to learn. I think that's a commitment to self. Two is people with this mindset are more focused towards self growth. The reason why they want to learn is because they want to upskill, they want to reskill, they want to do better in their careers, and they're more focused towards their own inner self growth, which plays a very important role other than the growth the organization offers. So the motivation levels. Uh, Two is being in a mid career, when I'm in my uh, early 30s, when I'm just starting a family or I'm about to get married or I'm trying to settle down. I commit a certain number of hours daily to upskill myself. So I'm actually taking away a few hours from my social life, committing and reinvesting in terms of from a learning perspective. And fourth, I'm parting away with a certain percentage of my salary which I'm investing again in myself from a learning perspective, because this is not sponsored by an organization. And there are millions of such people who've taken up this journey, and especially, yes, it's gone on a fast track basis because pandemic was an eye opener that skills are redundant, and we need to have future skills in order to survive in this competitive world, and also to do better. So these are the few DNAs which I really like and appreciate about. But at the same time, it's an organization's uh, I would say responsibility, or I would say that they should also think a little differently, because it's the acceptability comes from the businesses. It's not from the HR. HR are facilitators. HR would recommend the best practices, will try to implement the best practices, but at the same time, it is in partnership with the business. So there has to be an equal acceptability from the business. So how can HR play an important role in being the brand ambassador, I would say, driving this particular change to make business believe that that there has to be a right mix of people within the team. It just can't be only top heavy when we start hiring experience. At the end of the day, the source cost will obviously high. So what is the mix? Two is every hiring I'm doing, do an internal assessment, do an internal mapping, and say that whether this can be filled by experience or by skills. If it can be filled by skills, you actually save a lot of on resource costs. At the same time, you're giving an opportunity to someone else. Third is basically incentivize businesses, teams, departments to hire such talent. I mean, I've seen organizations where every time you hire an upskill talent versus a market talent, your headcount is considered zero point 0.5 instead of 1. So that's an incentive that I get as a business head, and I get motivated in terms of going out and hiring more people. So these are the various ways I think companies can adopt various strategies to relook at in terms of the total resources, the headcount, or the cost. That's
Absolutely.
all I had to say, Jerry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hussain, for sharing that. We've looked at all of these things that companies can do, but it's also curious to understand what is the other side, right? So, what are we telling candidates? It's quite alarming when Divya said that there's about 70 to 75% competing offers. I mean, that's an alarming rate, and it's something that HR professionals are faced with on a day to day basis. But what are you telling candidates, Mayank, in terms of prospective candidates who are coming up with these competing offers? What is your message to them, and what are you saying as HR also to them?
Sure. So, Jerry, before I talk about what we're telling candidates and what are the three, four things we are trying to do to convert, as Divya mentioned, this high decline ratio, especially in tech, I totally agree with that. A lot of our time and energy gets spent doing hiring events and drives over the weekend. And because of this high decline, typically the hiring managers, I feel very bad for them because one, they need to do their own bit in tech, and I'm specifically talking about tech here. And then over the weekend, they need to hire as well. And this is like a cycle which keeps going on and on and on. So before coming to the candidate, I think I know I was reading an article recently. There are some facts which people should, as candidates, consider or be cognizant of as far as the industry map is concerned. In the last 1 year, what has happened before they actually go out there to shop for offers? Obviously there is this economic grim sentiment in the next for the next 6 to 9 months. because of inflation, interest rate hikes, and this whole Russia Ukraine war and so on. One also needs to be cognizant. VC investors have pulled the plug. A lot of, and we were talking about this earlier. A lot of term sheets have been cancelled. I was reading somewhere in the last 5 months, well-funded startups have sacked over 5,000 people. Okay, and the VC circle speculation says that this number could be another 10,000 in the next coming months of the year. That's very, very alarming. That's huge. Obviously, this is like a boom and a bust, and this is a cyclical thing which keeps going on and on. But just to give you just an indicative number, the funding in this quarter has dropped to about $3 billion as compared to Jan Feb March quarter, where it was around $8 billion. So you can see the downshift at the moment, right? Funding rounds are getting delayed. There are fewer unicorns this year now as compared to last year. So candidates need to realize that if there are companies who are raising funds aggressively, they're also going to burn cash aggressively, because you need to burn to get growth, right? So as much as we all saw people enjoying great hikes last year, all the big spenders are the first ones to cut costs. So this is an important point, and at least at a senior level, mid to senior level, you can educate people. I'm just using this platform to tell folks that read up and be careful rather than just shopping for offers. So here are some 2-3 things we try to do. We basically, when we are making an offer, we talk about our EVP pillars, and we send the candidate a candidate handbook, which typically talks about 2-3 things. One is, what is your impact going to be in the organization? For example, in fintech, we are a digital financial services company, and we give opportunities, especially to techies, to build new age products at a core native level. Like we're getting into something called neo banking now, which is, for those who don't know, branchless banking. So except giving you a locker, everything else can be managed through the app, from investments to spends to savings to everything. It's like a money manager of sorts. Then stuff like lending, which is where this sector is going into. Those are very exciting projects. So one needs to talk about it so that people are interested in coming and getting exposure to these sort of opportunities. Then job stability, and I keep saying this every time we go to campus, or in general when we do hiring events. We offer the best of both the worlds, in the sense that you have the coolness and the flexibility of a startup and a product tech company, and you have the financial backing and job stability and job security of a bank, because we are the only fintech who's backed by the third largest private bank in the country. No other bank has a fintech of their own. These are important factors to consider, and for HR it's important to talk about all of this, right? Not just comp. Obviously everyone is offering comp. And next, in terms of EVP, I think it's important to talk about your culture. So we do talk about how energetic, young, and informal our work culture is. We don't call our office an office; we call it a playground, and we welcome people to our playground. And then basically we say it's a fun place to be in, and and you'll get all the benefits which new age companies are offering, progressive benefits, daycare, salary advance, so on and so forth. In fact, LGBTQ benefits have also been added by a lot of large organizations. So from a diversity hiring perspective, that helps, because we are anyway giving now extra leaves for gender affirmation, for example, inclusive parenting, paternity, and so on and so forth. So these things really matter, and you should talk about it. A lot of companies do pre-joining connects. I think that's an important piece. In fact, we backtrack. So if there is a 1 month joining, then we have a plan, especially for product and tech roles. What will I do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4? Call the person for lunch, send a book, or have a chat with the CTO, so on and so forth. Those things are common now, but those are important things we need to keep doing. Also, I think what has worked well for us is we try and now send the laptop and a cool welcome kit at least 3 days before the person joins. Now that somewhere psychologically also creates a pressure that I've got a laptop now. Who's going to now send it back? Although there are people who still decline and send the laptop back, but I'm saying that ratios kind of improved because of taking an initiative of sending stuff to them and keep being in touch with them early on. In fact, we just participated in a global certification called GPTW, which is a great place to work. So if you are a GPTW certified company or you have these kind of certifications, it's important to talk about it, especially while you're engaging with candidates. And lastly, I think it's very prudent in today's time to talk about how inclusive you are in terms of your work environment and culture. So if you do promote hybrid mode, I think Hussain mentioned that you promote and you're okay with that. Talk about it. Show the candidate that we are cognizant of the need for your flexibility, and you need to be cognizant of our need to create this organization as a collaborative sort of workspace, right? So gig is something I was mentioning earlier that helps in fostering this thought and promoting this sort of a culture. So those are my thoughts, Jerry.
Right, right. Great. Great points there, Mayank. I think you've not just given us what you're doing, but also how you're doing it. Whether it's right from the EVP to bringing a purpose-led focus and speaking about it, and also talking about different innovation efforts that you're taking, and also job security and little things like welcome kit can also sort of be helpful in building that connection with that candidate. So that's great. I'm conscious of time, but we have a few questions still left. But I just wanted to merge some of these questions as well. We have an audience question on, in the current dynamic situation of crisis, should we go for build or buy when the loyalty factor has gone out? There's also a question around what should be the strategy to reinvent the whole hierarchy of HRD in a developing company, which is I thought was very relevant. Both of these questions to a question that we had also thought about is how do you build a more sustainable talent model and bring maturity to that over time, right? Divya, how are you thinking about this? And we've seen this context change, like Mayank said, but how do you build sustainability to the talent model?
Yeah, so in my mind, the best talent model is a balance of three things, right? So build, buy, and I will also add borrow to it, because that's key in the space of the future of work that we are talking about, and the way people's priorities are changing in this during this pandemic, and how our talent preferences have changed in the way they want to engage with work. So I would kind of say that now it's time for us to actually think about talent in these three pivots, which is build, buy, and borrow. uh, what I would believe is that because of the diversification of this, we will have the right BCP for resilience in tough times as well. And I think I've already spoken about EVP on how do we bring this together, right? Now, on build by, I've spoken slightly about it in my previous point as well. On the buy, I would also add one more thing in the context of the current consolidation in the market that's happening. uh, there is acqui-hire is a very good opportunity for us to, for the companies to look at plugging the gaps of the skills that they have through a ready-made proven talent and skill demand. That's how I would say. So that's one channel which is kind of picking up again in the market, because there is consolidation happening. There has been a boom, there's been a bust, there is a need for consolidation. So acqui-hire is a fourth channel, I would say, or it's a sub channel of a buy, I would say, that companies are getting into to get access to high quality talent, I would say. So that's got into the picture very strongly as we talk about this, right? uh, now I'll also touch upon a little bit on the borrow part of what I was mentioning. So in the future of work, people are now saying they don't really want to be bound by, say, one company, or work for certain hours, or really kind of look at things in a way that, I'll need to work from a certain location or a certain thing. So in fact, there are many more people as compared to what we had 5 to 6 years back also. They're very happy with doing different projects with different kinds of work with different organizations, while balancing their personal priorities, and they want to design the time that they have. And there is a very good talent pool available there. And in fact, for organizations, just think of, so I would just take a very random example, right? Like, there's some specialized skill based jobs that are available. So look at design, for example. Now there is a lot of creative talent out there, and their priorities, you will actually find much more of the target we are talking about is much more open to being working as freelancers, or be engaged as gig, etc. And I think even for organizations, they can easily get their work done, and in a much more efficient way than to actually commit to a certain number of FTEs that they have to buy or they have to hire. It's like you can suddenly now tap into the talent of, say, or brains of, say, 50 people, as compared to commit to 4 or 5 people internally. So that's more of a win-win situation. So that's one thing which is emerging strongly with the organizations, as I see. I think we did touch upon, so Mayank was talking about the whole gig, the way they're the gig F and the gig I really like the way you've actually named it, Mayank. I need to kind of really tell you that. But that's the reality. Now people want to, they can work anywhere. There's a job which can be done. I think it's a win-win situation where we have to start being more comfortable experimenting with those models as we go forward. So I think that's the way for us to start looking at talent model, which is much more enriched as compared to the traditional way of looking at talent through a traditional hiring process. And there is a vacancy, you hire, and then it will take 2 to 3 months, and there is offer decline, they come back. I mean, that's a very traditional run of the mill that organizations have been used to. But now looking at the talent model in these three aspects that we spoke about, I think it will help in getting things done in a much faster, nimble, and an efficient way.
Great. I
Divya,
think a
you
lot of
can feel free to borrow the term gig A and gig F to your point of borrowing.
absolutely. So that's a lot of good
Yeah,
ideas
okay.
there.
Sure, man.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that, Divya. Kunal, I'm coming to you on. I mean, we're hearing all of this, different ideas. There's also a question on, whether gig employees are more appropriate, when it comes to hiring at this point in time, maybe. So how are you thinking about this question about sustainability of talent models?
So I think I almost concur with Divya that the way that we are going in the current market situation. I mean, it will not be just a one strategy to look at. Only about going and buying talent. I think that is what, at least at the present stage, all ITS companies have actually done that in the last 6 months. That they've gone go about buying talent. They're just, and that, I don't know, does that has created that spare, or maybe something else has actually done that. But that there is basically in turmoil that's there, from a talent, and of course the switchability, and a passive candidates coming more in the pipeline with the people, wherein it's very difficult to find out that who is the right talent to actually, who's going to join you. That's something which is the biggest question. It's not about the talent is not good. I mean, even the passive talent that is there, they are coming. You are getting people who are getting interviewed. You are still getting people who are getting shortlisted, and you are still have a prospective employee to look at as an employer. But somehow, will that person join? That's a different thing. Yes, but we have to look at now the strategy is talking about putting all these three things together and creating your own pyramid. Till the time you don't have the resource, then of course borrow is the only model that you need to look at, because at this point in time, borrowing talent is giving you two perspective. One, sustainability of your business, right? Because at this point in time, you need hands and legs to run your business. There is a revenue that you need to look at. The people leaving your, I mean, that can become challenging for you. So you have to think of that as a mitigation plan to do as an immediate need. And of course, and there are many companies, who are actually doing that at this moment. Uh, and secondly, of course, you have to invest heavily on the build part, because the output and the build has a longer sustainability, if we have to look at, because they are curious. They want to invest, in the proposition of what the organization is, and the big organizations are giving them. They are very invested in terms of what they are learning, with what they have learned, and they have a direct, they have direct opportunity to implicate that. And then of course somehow, buy has to be as more of a stopgap arrangement. That's how we really need to look at, when we are now trying to somewhat navigate in this talent war somewhere. And that's how we have to we are presently doing. I mean, specifically in IT space, our dependency on borrow talent has become extensively high. Not just India as a region, but even outside. And yeah, of course, gig is something that we are trying, honestly, but I think that is still not fruitful for us. But it is evolving. That's what we are saying at least in the IT space. But yes, that's the two model we are presently investing on, and we are seeing some proposition to mitigate this, proposition.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, Kunal. We have an audience question on placement partner. So I want Hussein to take this question. What are some essential steps that organizations need to take into account while selecting the right placement partner? And Hussein, I think earlier you were talking a little bit about the difference between future ready and market ready talent as well. Could you touch upon that also, and how it's sort of relevant to HR leaders making talent decisions today?
So that's an interesting question, Jerry. I think how to select a right placement partner. But before that, I just wanted to kind of touch upon an interesting, uh, I would say, based on a research and interesting result that kind of came up saying that we saw a lot of diversity, a lot of women joining back workforce during the pandemic. And why did it happen? I mean, the answer was very pretty obvious, saying that because the spouse lost the job due to the pandemic, the women of the house had to take the lead or the leap and say that I'm going to run the show now, so let me just uh, go back to my corporate career. But at the same time, the most effective was not this. The most effective result was saying that now COVID has, or pandemic has reiterated, saying that running a family is a joint responsibility. And with that, now with both the spouses at home sharing the responsibilities, becomes easier for women to get back to work. And that's another reason why we saw a lot of diversity, talent coming back, joining various industry and corporate. And I completely resonate the thoughts that Mayank, Divya, Kunal about gig. I think India is the largest gig economy. Unfortunately, a gig is more unorganized than organized, and hence that's where the gap is. But at the same time, a gig also means while you pay someone on assignment basis of freelancer, there's also big opportunities for part timers that we see improving. People who are not able to take up a full time job but are constrained to work for a few hours plays a very important role in terms of contributing to various organizations. So I think these are the ways organizations can think of building their workforce, which has to be now a combination. It cannot be just one way. I think that question has already been answered by Divya, Mayank, and Kunal in different ways, saying that it's build uh, versus borrow versus buy. I think these are the ways, but I think at the same time, keeping the employees upskill plays a very important role. So, in while we are talking about hiring upskill talent, but at the same time, the responsibility is also towards the existing employees in terms of giving them that platform, engaging with them, motivating them to take up the learning journey, giving them various benefits, SOPs, or a career graph that can help them visualize in terms of the way they need to move ahead when it comes to career by upskilling themselves. I think by doing that, a lot of job redundancy can be filled internally when the employees are upskilled. At the same time, multi-skilling also plays a very important role for some roles that can be clubbed together. And that itself will be a resource optimization way forward for any organization. And to answer the question, I think selecting the right placement partner, it completely depends on one, an internal survey, internal assessment in terms of what are the skills where I need to hire or recruit for skill talent. Based on those skills, I think I would navigate through various firms that are offering or covering those skills in their curriculum, and then a deeper analysis whether the content matches the expectation of the hiring manager from a skill perspective is an ideal way of selecting a partner.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Hussein. We have one audience question on when it comes to finding skilled talent at zero cost, which is the best way to move forward? Mayank, do you want to take this?
Yeah, okay, so cost can never be zero. First of all, I want to be very clear because there is an opportunity cost of your team working on internal hiring also, and there is a salary cost for the HR team also. So let's get the facts right. There is nothing called zero cost hiring. It can't happen. Okay. Yes, it can be optimal, and hence I'll circle back to the two things I mentioned at the start of our discussion, which I feel are very, very high potential and possibly the lowest cost. One is obviously to have, and since we're talking about future ready talent, campus hiring is a very cost effective way of going about building a sort of a pipeline, building a sort of ready made. I hate this word, but I'll use it anyways. Called bench. But have people who will fill in the gaps over a period of time, and your hiring cost will not go up, right? So it's important to have fresh, lesser experienced sort of talent and seasoned talent. And I totally agree with Hussain. Some organizations typically say, let's hire all the heads first, and then they will respectively hire their team members from other organizations, which typically happens. We are human beings. We travel in packs, in herds, right? So you'll go and you'll take four people from your team wherever you go. It happens everywhere, right? But so coming back to the fact that campus, I think, plays a critical role, and nothing beats than referrals. Like I was sharing, referrals is definitely a great way of making sure you encourage and foster that culture of referring people, creating that inclusion, creating that camaraderie, and last third piece I feel, which will really which we've seen has played a huge impact on the applications we've received, has been employer branding. So at for free charge 1.5 years back, our Glassdoor rating was 3.3 or 3.4, and we had some 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. Today, our followers are in excess of 1 lakh, and our Glassdoor rating is 4.4. And Divya will agree, and so will Kunal and Hussain. Techies look at Glassdoor rating before they apply for jobs. They definitely look at Glassdoor rating. So it is very prudent for HR teams to make sure they invest heavily, and not by spending money. You don't have to spend any money in just being out there on LinkedIn, or Glassdoor, making sure you close the loop. If they've got a comment, whether it's good or it's bad, doesn't matter. Please close the loop, close the feedback, and say, hey, sorry, you had a bad experience, for people who've given grim feedback, for example, and say, we'll make sure that we'll be more prudent next time around, and we will be happy to talk to you again. Because people post views on their hiring experiences also, irrespective whether they get selected or not. And mostly people who don't get selected will definitely go and post on Glassdoor, right? Because they want to make sure that you also feel the pinch of not hiring them. So those are three things I feel, Jerry, which basically can help you get talent at a cost effective sort of manner.
Fantastic. I think we're out of time, but that's a great place to close, Mayank. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to thank all of our speakers. I think they gave us a number of different examples that they're trying in their organizations, and so many different new things that they're doing, even from a skills and career graph perspective, experiments on, build, buy, borrow as well. So I hope that was really enriching for our audience, and a lot of action tips you've taken with us from this conversation today. So thank you, Mayank, Divya, Hussain, and Kunal, for giving us your time. I'd also like to thank our partner, upGrad Recruit, for helping us curate this session. And that's a close from us. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more such exciting sessions. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.